Welcome back to Your 1230, the only podcast where our guests tell their story with the help of 12 questions in just 30 minutes. I'm your host, Mike Salitro, and today we are really excited to be joined by Michaell Magrutsche. Austrian Californian, Michaell is a multidisciplinary artist, strategist, private, corporate, and political, creativity awareness educator, speaker, and author. Michaell also works on raising the awareness of our limitless human potential. Dyslexia and dysgraphia force Michaell to develop an awareness to see the world contextually. Having a more human-centric perspective in art creation saved his life feeling like a human being instead of an outcast. Michaell, welcome. We're really, really excited to be speaking with you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you giving me canvas to paint.
Of course. That's a very impressive bio, and I'm not joking here. I'm cutting it after 2 paragraphs of what could be 18.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things in that paragraph. So if you run to somebody that you've never met before, you meet someone new, how do you introduce yourself, or what do you tell them you're up to?
I'm Michaell. Literally, I don't believe in, I'm giving you a bio, because people know what you want to do. But basically, I'm me. I'm purely me. And I was forced to be me because I could not figure in. I was born in Vienna. I was a sick child. I went to school when I was 7. And then I had 8 years of school, which 3 I had to repeat. Three grades I had to repeat. So only I learned how to type and how to read. That's it. Everything else, and then the basic algebra. That's it.
So you've come quite a long way since then. Do you remember kind of at that age thinking, I don't know, what were you think? What was it like to being a student to have probably not a lot of people looking out for you, helping you? What got you through day to day and ultimately to where you are now?
When we are young, we want to belong. And when you can't belong, and I think we are all so anxious, all of us, even till the adolescence, that we just take day by day. We just want to be accepted. We just want to be part of it. And I wasn't accepted. So I had to find something else. I wasn't accepted in the system where all my friends went to school, all this stuff. So I had to find, and God thanks, I found art creation. And art creation is very human-centric. You don't, nobody cares if your gender, what race you are, what sexuality. The theater piece has to be done. The painting has to be done. The music has to be done. That was it. And that I resonated with that because nobody asked me what school I did, what grade I did, how good I read or anything. Because I couldn't read. I stuttered, and everyone was laughing. And when you repeat grades, then you are like 2 years older, like at 10, you're 12 years, everybody's laughing at you. You're the big guy, the dummy. And I didn't feel I was abused or bullied or anything, but it's just, you feel it. You don't fit in somewhere, you feel that you don't fit.
As you describe art, it kind of reminds me or makes me think of meritocracies or things that the work has to get done. You're judged on your work, not necessarily how you got there, what put into it. But what makes art a little different than kind of other disciplines is that it's creative and that it is fairly subjective in some areas. So even if it may not seem like that was what works for this circle, might work in another, or it's viewed differently by the person who's looking upon it. So it sounds like, from speaking with you now and earlier conversations, that was something that came more naturally to you and that you worked toward and have excelled there. Jumping ahead, you've also written a few books, you speak, you do a lot of different things. What kind of drives you to try these new things, put them together, and how does it feel natural now?
Now it feels natural because I have the awareness. See, the knowledge doesn't help you. It's system knowledge, it outdates. It's like, we learn how a fax machine, and then fax machine is outdated, forget it. You know everything about the fax machine. Finally, you know how to send a document, and now something else comes, So that's what we do in technology and everywhere. Nobody uses Windows 98 anymore. So we constantly change on that. So how I did, what drove me was when you create art is inherent in all of us. You get that's why I say creating art and tinkering and working in the garden, doing some crafts, building a cabin, doing something. The feedback, you can say, oh, that's the worst cabin you built. I've never seen a worse cabin. Or it's the best cabin. But nobody can take away that you did it. The same with your podcast. They can say it's the best podcast, it's the worst podcast format, but you did it and nobody can take it away. And this is a self-esteem and self-confidence that nobody can steal. They can judge it. And usually the people that judge something like that are not the people that create, because you will never hear Joe Rogan or Howard Stern say, oh, this is a horrible podcast. They would never say that. They don't attack their own, because we all are creators, and creators don't attack creators. They know how hard it is and how hard to bring your essence in it. Everybody can do a podcast, but it has to be yours, because if it's not yours, you're lost, you're done, And then I think that's the art creation gave me the self-confidence, because one thing I was always self-confident, even though I shamed myself for not fitting in the systems, but I always was self-confident because I thought, oh my God. Yeah. And also I was human-centric. My friends, I was good with people. And so the feedback that I got from my friends, the feedback I got from the arts community, the feedback I got from creating, not from the product, from the creating, made me get my thread through life from one project to another.
So I want to kind of dig into that a little bit, the kind of self-esteem piece and the system piece. That I think it's comfortable for a lot of people to get self-esteem from fitting into that system, understanding how things work and excelling in it, regardless of how narrow and how big picture that can be. So it sounds like you kind of figured this out at a young age, where some people never get to it, that, I need to be multidisciplinary, or I need to know that this works now, but it might not work. The fax machine is a great example. It's that this works great now, but it's going to change. How were you kind of ahead of that curve, understand that I need to do a lot of things, I need to understand a lot of things, and they can all fit together in a way that is harmonious for me?
Fitting together is a great question. Fitting together, after the fact. Basically, you have to be in the moment. You say, now it's my podcast with you. I'm focusing on that and giving the best that I can in the moment. And that's always. I never can calculate, because neurodivergent have a hard time lying, because they can't remember what they said. So I could not say, I have a plan to go. I don't have any goals. It happens to me. Somebody comes to me, wants to have an interview, wants to do this, wants to have me talk, wants to consult, not consult, more advice, because you can't consult really somebody, because everybody's different. So you can say, let me expand your perception, but you cannot really advise anybody. There's no 3 steps. I'm a hater of 3 and 5 steps, because they might help me, but they can never help you. And as you know, there's more consultants out there than people that need the consultants. And there's another funny thing is there's more leadership consultants than leaders, and I'm saying, why doesn't anybody wants to be just themselves, like a good team player? Nobody wants to be a team player. And that's the reason with the system relevance again, because you want to be a leader, because then other people do the dirty work, that the systemic work, filling out forms and all this stuff. And you do the creative stuff, because we are all creative. I call humans collaborative creator animals of nature, because look at what we create: New York, Singapore, Apple. It's all collectively. We must tinker. The guy, the CEO in the corner office, what does he do in the way? He works 60 hours on the weekend. What does he do? He's tinkering on his car, in his garden, or hangs out with his friend. He has to be human. He can't be systemically linear. Let's do this. Our last quarter was thing, we have to change this and blah, blah, blah. It's just, otherwise you lose yourself.
A lot of good points there. And it brings to mind is what jumped off the page for me as I was going through the bio and prepping today, was the strategist piece in your bio, the private, corporate, and political. So that can mean different things to different folks, and it's also multidisciplinary. But what does that mean for your engagements, who you're working with, and why are people seeking you out? What are they looking? What kind of strategy are they looking for?
So I was a political advisor for two politicians. One won the election, and the other one is in the California Senate right now. So I'm advising. They would come and say, "Hey, Michael, I have no idea about art." So in political, in the political arena, for example, the one person would said, "I don't have anything about. Can you give me a short course, and can you guide me when we have the discussion about the arts or whatever?" And then the other is just he is in the art business, and I just told him about basic things like basic human things that 10% will always, that's statistically, if you're Jesus, 10% will hate it. They will be opposed. And when politicians go for the 10%, to try to turn them around, that's the biggest mistake that you can do. You have to keep going, because that's in our DNA, that 10%, it keeps the human race balanced. So you have that. That's not, conditioned or anything. The 10% will not like you, because everybody has a different perspective, and that is so perfectly organized by nature that's about 10, 11%. So things like that, how people, and then also do human-centrically. I say, you want to do, let's say, what would be a good example? You want to do you have a crime problem. Don't look at the crime. Don't like to punish. Don't live systemically. We need more cops. We need to punish. We need to, put fear into people. We need to get rid of homeless people. Rather say, what is the human-centric problem? What is really why do we have crime in the first place? And why are they here and not somewhere else? And when you look at that, and not just looking at a statistic and what to get rid of it, because whatever you fight persists. You know that what you resist, what resists persists. So it's learning, integrating it, understanding it from a human. So how does nature handle this? When animals fight in nature, they're not going to fight to the death like we do in wars. War is a systemic confrontation. Where's a fight, and then you see who is the strongest, and you go on. So this is I always look at human-centric, and then the system relevant is solving itself.
So I'm sure you meant to do it, but as you described the 10% or so of people that will always oppose you or disagree with you or not like you, and then they thought about the crime example, that there's always going to be that element that is fighting against what you're doing, perhaps the 10% as well, or there's some number that is going, no matter what's in place, that they're going to take the other side of it. Two follow-ups. I'm going to try to land this. I doubt I'll be able to, but it's really hard to ignore that 10% for some of us, and I'll include myself there, to say, well, I want this group to like me. I want this person to like me. What's a good way to realize I'm never going to get them on my page? I need to stop now. What can I do, today to stop that? If that's something that's always on my mind.
You can never make anybody like you. Neither your wife, nor your kids, nor anybody. You can never make somebody like you. You can only be you. And the more you are you, and the more you're self-aware about who you are, the more people will like you. I'm the best example. The more you know yourself, the more people like you. I'm preaching what I live. I live like that. So the more you know you, if I see you and you're upset right now, okay, I would say, what is it in me that upsets you? I would say, what am I radiating that you can hook in it and then just be upset about me? And you learn. And so I embrace a conflict. When somebody says to you, Michael, I totally agree with this at all. I mean, I've not a lot, but I have some people that said that don't agree with my opinion about this at all. And I said, thank you, because it makes me better to make my point. Every ambiguity, you don't learn anything from success. I'm sorry to tell this to the audience. You don't learn anything from success, nor from an award. nor from, it doesn't change your life. I was Arts Commissioner of Newport Beach. It didn't change my life. It got me experience. That's what's value of wisdom and awareness, but it didn't change my life. It didn't make it right. I worked with Robert Evans, who did The Godfather and all the other movies. He did The Godfather and Chinatown and all this stuff. I worked with him for 6-8 months, lived in his house. And what I pivoted there was, I'm so afraid to lose that. See, it's like we want to get somewhere. That's our goal. That's our dream. And then we are frightened to lose it. And that's when Elon Musk, you need $5,000 to live. Elon Musk needs 100 million every month. And this is what the problem is. Centralized power is making you inhumane, because you need to survival, and survival trumps everything. So 14 educated people, top people, decided to eliminate 6 million Jews. That's why I'm saying. And now 8 people run the world, tech companies that are not regulated. So I think it's very hard to be on top for everyone. I think it's 10 times more harder nobody can imagine what it is to be, superstars, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Nobody can. I couldn't handle that stress, never. And I never wanted to be in this position. Because you don't have to. Nature is not, there's no Elon Musk comparable in nature. Just look, we are part of it.
So I'm going to jump into a few things you said there. I want to follow up if I can. Yeah. Self-aware is one thing you started with there. I wrote that down because that was in my notes when we first spoke, was that very self-aware, and judge is the wrong word, but a good judge of character, or be able to kind of diagnose who they're speaking to, or a good barometer of other people. That's not, and I find that those two things are often tied, that if you are self-aware, you know yourself, you can understand where the people are coming from and get what they're about. The other thing I wanted to, now I'll go back to that, but you mentioned embrace conflict. That's something that people will say, and that is generally good, and it goes hand in hand with not being able, not learning from success. But when things don't work out, or when there's something that is making it difficult, making it hard, or didn't work out, that's what you learn. How can people who kind of gravitate towards comfort, taking something that may not be risky, how can you embrace conflict, or how can you make it okay, as opposed to get me out of this conversation or get me out of the situation?
Confrontation is not good. As a confrontation is tricky. But what you said first about the self-awareness is not that I know you. Self-awareness is I know me. And when I know me, automatically, I allow my 6 senses, like what you have other people on the podcast. It takes you 1 second to align with them, and others not. But in general, it works. That's a good thing on podcasting. You practice that you actually can with all the humans. You don't need to agree with them, and that's given. There's an automatic part of it where our 6 senses, I said we can talk, we can communicate without language. We can communicate with 8 billion people through art. So if you and I sing right now, most people won't like it, but everybody will understand this is a happy song or a sad song around the world. So we have a lot built in our body. When we cut ourselves, it heals itself. We just leaning on systems to do everything for us. So the ambiguity is a practice, because you have to recondition yourself. That's not going to happen. So when you're, you start with pain, for example, you hurt yourself. You're not trying to put an aspirin in you, but you feel the pain, because sometimes the body wants to just release the tension. Yeah. And you lean into it, and you learn to lean in. Somebody says a horrible, said, Mike, you're horrible. Yeah. And it hurts you. And you just lean in that. Why does it, hurt? And then you just can ask it, but just lean into it. And that's practice. Because before I was reacting to everything, but now I'm just saying, okay, I accept that. And then I get back to them, but I let that in, lean into that pain or disappointment or whatever. and I feel like it goes away. And then you talk to the person and it's gone totally, it's a different conversation instead of reacting to somebody.
Okay. That's an excellent answer. Thank you for that. We mentioned up top that you've written a few books. You currently are working on another. Was it important?
Seven. I did 5 unpublished. I'm finishing up 6, and 7 is about system relevance and human centricity.
So we'll ask you about that next. But as somebody, we talked a little bit about growing up dyslexic, difficulty, understanding letters on a page. Was it a goal of yours? Was it something that you sought out to write, or how did that come about?
It came out automatically. This is how I came to writing. I never wrote because I never read. So it was a hard thing to do. And audio tapes help a lot because I'm very good with audio tapes. I can absorb the information and keep it. What I did is I always took notes. And art was so interesting to me because it changed my life so much. So I wrote my impression. I said, when I choose these 2 colors, something happens, and how I change the colors. And I was pre-computer, right? So sometimes I had to repaint, and I do hard edge, which means very, it's not shaded or anything. It's just blue, green, because I've also dysgraphia, which is a hand-eye coordination. I couldn't do a portrait of you. But I painted stuff, and I saw there's so much in it. And I wrote down, when I do this, sometimes I had to paint over a painting. One painting that I called Life took me 7 years to finish because I couldn't figure out the inside. And I wrote down the insights that came when I wrote it on the computer, just tapped in when I did this. And then one day I had so many notes that I said, oh my God, I have to put that in a document, and I pulled them all in to hit the wall. I love when we have problems that we can't solve, and I have a way to get out of it.
No, thank you for tying that together. When you talk about it that way, it makes sense, and it's quite impressive the way that you were able to turn your notes into books to something that makes sense, that people want to read, learn from, and kind of understand where you're coming from. So what are you working on currently, and what is the project that is taking up most of your time currently?
It's articles. It's articles about certain things that are gonna come into my 7th book. One is about, I told you about food, how we solved the food crisis in the world. Not like I have the solution, but there needs to be anything you want to solve. You need awareness first. If you can go to every coach in the world that tells you how you have a conflict with your brother or wife or boyfriend, and you can do all the steps that person does. If you're not aware, and all your friends can say, why do you let that happen to you? Until you know, awareness is the key. Until you aware, it's gonna be the same old. You try to fix it, you feel guilty, she feels guilty, blah, 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 blah. You have to be aware. That is the target of any problem that we're looking for. And I have forgotten what you asked me. I don't want to, I lost my thread.
No, no problem. I was just asking what you're working on currently, and you mentioned articles.
Oh, what I work? Yeah, I work on articles. So one is this, and then I also realized by writing on books, and my notes, looking through my notes, and I said, man, we are in a lack, and it's like fish. Our water of humanity is a constant lack and scarcity. It's never enough. You hit the quarter, you surpass the quarter. You can't even celebrate because tomorrow starts the second quarter. We are, and nobody can escape that. Elon Musk not, Jeff Bezos, Trump, anybody cannot escape that because we are all unaware and all reacting to that. So everybody is never enough. So even like I wrote a movie script, and that's in the 80s. I said, I need to have that in the 80s because in the 80s, they had more fun with money. Nobody has fun with money. You have billions now, and nobody had billions then. You have billions now, but I see nobody has fun. Nobody is fulfilled. People kill themselves with millions of dollars. So money doesn't do what it did before. And it's just, and you have to have more. And the more money, as I told you before, the more money you have concentrated on you, the harder it is to keep that money, and the harder it is to comprehend that you can live with less. Even if you don't spend it, it's not like you make it a lot and you spend a lot. No, that doesn't matter. You're in a lack and you're in scarcity like everybody else. And this is where I say nobody can escape, because our swarm behavior. See, if I put Bezos and Musk on an island in Hawaii with all the chicks, with all the cars, with all the money, with everything, with the best cooks in the world, and the rest of the world is suffering, they can never enjoy this. And even if they wouldn't know that the rest of the world is suffering, because we're all interconnected. Like I said, you go in a church, it's a different energy as you go into a government office. We are all interconnected. And when we kill 100,000 people, we have to take the slack. When we make a lot of people poor, we feel it. And we have to get, and this is what I'm focusing right now on, that to make aware people, not to tell them 3 steps, not to say I have the answer, not to save humanity, but my perspective, because we are not only 8 one-of-one humans, we, by DNA, fingerprints, and eyes, we are also having a different perspective. Because if you have siblings or kids, or any family, you live in the same house, you live the same life, and I have 2 brothers and a sister, and we all have a different perspective on life. So there is no right way or wrong way, because 8 billion people are unique. But the beauty of that is that, like what we're doing now, we learn about my perspective, and your perspective is widening, because you and I have a human-centric talk, not a system-relevant talk. We're contributing to a conversation where, instead of system-relevant, is I'm right, you're wrong. I'm better, you are worse. Win or lose. And that's why in politics, nothing goes on. This is a big problem. They haven't talked for eons, not about the humans. They have talked about which system is better and what to do, instead of representing each human in the systems.
Well, I could easily ask you plenty more questions. As I look up at the time, we somehow are already at time. Where can our listeners find you, or if they want to read your stuff, where can they do that, Michaell?
MichaellM.com. Michaell with 2 L's. MichaellM.com, and you get my LinkedIn. All my socials are there. All my access to my over 200 guest appearances on radio show and TV and stuff. You can book me there. You can do everything there. Look at my book, look at my art, listen to my music. So, and we can do this anytime, Mike. If you want me back for special things, I love hard stuff. The harder, the better.
Okay, so we will post that. Harder, the better. We'll leave it here then. Not that hard, actually. But what's one thing I didn't ask you that I probably should have?
No, you did good. We gotta put this. We can put this in the thing that if people are uncertain what is human-centric and system-relevant, I did a document with a graph and everything, so you can feel it, because it helped me 50%. My life got 50 till 50. I hit the wall, and after I've got this, it got 50% easier, because it just helps me making decisions that are for me, for my uniqueness, not decisions that are right for the system, for somebody else.
Okay. Well, that's it. It's an excellent answer and a good place to wrap up this talk. Michaell, I appreciate the time. This has been great, and I do look forward to doing it again.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.